welcome to BCM325 Future Cultures. In this two-part video, we're going to examine operations research and think tanks. Operations or operational research is a military term, and it now stands for a wide-ranging set of problem-solving techniques and advanced mathematical and statistical analytical methods that help governments, corporations, institutions, and individuals make better decisions about future events. Arising out of operations research are organizations we call think tanks, which are often semi-private or private research institutions and organizations that employ operations research and other methods to investigate and advocate for solutions to economic, social, political, military, and cultural problems. These two elements are interlinked, so we're going to examine both in each part of this two-part video. During World War II, British pilots were outnumbered by German pilots, at least initially. But the Allies won the air war over Britain with the assistance of operations research, which used an operational system based on radar observations and mathematical predictions to make forecasts about the course of German bombers. These predictions were used to direct the fighter pilots, not to where the bombers had been or where they were observed, but rather to where the bombers were going to be when the fighters could reach them. The pilots, the aircraft, the radar towers, and their operators, and the commanders were all part of a single command and control system known as the Dowding system, which could direct the operations with high levels of efficiency. It took just 17 minutes from radar station observation to pilots scrambling, climbing to the correct altitude, and engaging the incoming bombers, reaching them before the bombers could attack their targets. Contemporary operational research is thought of as an advanced subdomain of applied mathematics and is often called management science or decision science, as it involves modeling, statistical analysis, and methods of optimization to arrive at predictions for solving complex decision-making problems. Operational research was made famous by the RAND Corporation, which is an American research and development think tank established in 1948 following World War II by the Douglas Aircraft Company in order to advise the United States Armed Forces. RAND is now a non-profit organization that is funded by the US government, corporations, universities, and its own private funds, and it is deeply embedded in the US Department of Defense, the Pentagon, and other US agencies. While primarily a military think tank, RAND uses operations research and applied science and mathematical modeling and other techniques to address national issues in economics, healthcare, artificial intelligence, as well as advise on global and social cultural policies from transportation to terrorism. A think tank is a research institute or policy center which conducts research and lobbies or advocates to government and businesses on topics including military strategy, economic policy, social and cultural policy, as well as technology, health, education, and so on. Think tanks can be non-profit organizations funded by government or sponsored by advocacy groups and corporations. Although a modern phenomenon, there is evidence of organizations of scholars, lawyers, priests all across Asia and Europe who consulted with emperors and kings on military, economic, and social decisions. We'll come back to one of the oldest think tanks in part 2 of this video. Operational research is thought based on data, which in the 1970s was considered a military technology in itself, as predicting military and non-military behavior of communist regimes became part of the United States Cold War strategy. Think tanks like RAND conducted research into rocket technologies, new materials, and engineering processes, and although they extensively supported military projects, their results had great benefits for national health, energy, education, and economic policy. Some of the earliest computer models to simulate global climate change emerged from RAND. Modern hospitals, for example, benefited from RAND and other think tank research that led to the development of intensive care units and more effective organizational operations, especially in urban hospitals. Operational research and think tanks both employ different iterations of what's called a systems approach, which involves interdisciplinary teams made up of individuals with a range of knowledge and expertise, taking into consideration the connections between the interdependent parts, both natural and man-made, that occur within a specific space and time. This systems approach is used to forecast outcomes for the future by modeling abstract concepts. Herman KAHN was a prominent military strategist, systems theorist, and futurist with the RAND Corporation, who left to co-found the Hudson Institute, a politically conservative think tank based in Washington, D.C., which focused on the future of the Western world. KAHN became well known for his analysis of the consequences of nuclear war in his 1960 book on thermonuclear war, and his concept of MAD, or mutually assured destruction, partly inspiring Stanley Kubrick's dark comedy on the subject, Dr. Strangelove. Operations research incorporates the investigation of organizational structure, communication, and control with the aim of increasing the effectiveness of the executive's decision-making. KAHN's alternative thinking and strategy shook the military establishment at the time. He became famous for unorthodox strategy and infamous for thinking the unthinkable. KAHN's book explored the concept of megadeath, the potential for 1 million human deaths caused by a nuclear explosion, which actually helped the public to consider the future in terms of what would happen following a nuclear world war. KAHN's observation that in a nuclear war at the time, it was reasonable to expect between 2 and 160 million deaths, and he famously asked, "Will the survivors envy the dead?" This concern has occupied writers and artists for decades, with stories like Mad Max and the Fallout game series continuing to imagine what such a post-apocalyptic future would be like. On that dark note, we're going to end part 1 of this video. In the next part, we will pick up on operations research and continue to look at how organizations and think tanks have played a part in its development.